time. It's integral to video games. From a low-level technical understanding to a high-level gameplay perspective, time is always important. We use it to keep score, to keep track of who's the highest on the leaderboard, and we pause it to take a breather. Time is a component that all games keep track of in some way, whether you see it or not. But as a mechanic, it's one of the most unique concepts out there, especially when it comes to controlling it. Time manipulation is a surprisingly common feature in puzzle games like Ty Taylor's The Bridge and Two Tribes' Toki Tori, but it's found its way into the action and even racing genres. It comes in many forms as well, from a real-time replay in Codemasters' Dirt 3 to a limited duration rewind in Don't Nod's Life is Strange.
Whoa, what the fuck?
Time manipulation is an incredibly useful tool in games that require precision or trial and error. But just how does it work? How do you reverse time? Well, let's take a look. At first glance, time reversal might seem to work by recording the screen for a certain amount of time and playing it back in reverse, or maybe the game records your inputs and resimulates the game in reverse order. Both are on the right track, but it's a little more complex than that. The way that it works, at least in most popular cases, is that every little bit of necessary data for every moving object, like the position, current sprites, velocities, and so on, are collected and stored after every update in the machine's random access memory. So if your character is walking along and falls down a hole onto some spikes and dies, you can hold the rewind button and the system will begin to go through and apply all of the saved data for their corresponding objects in reverse order. The data is then deleted to make room for more. To put it more simply, it's kind of like hitting undo really quickly. All your previous actions are iterated through in reverse order until you stop hitting the button. So the concept itself is fairly easy to wrap your head around. Frame data for all objects and systems are stored in the machine's memory and replaced when rewinding or fast forwarding. But actually using it in a game has presented many challenges to developers, and each game that utilizes it has had its own interpretation. Ubisoft's critically acclaimed Prince of Persia franchise's earlier titles were the first to bring the idea of time reversal to the forefront. The game relies on a charge system where you had a maximum number of chances to rewind time by a fixed amount before getting a game over. What makes the Prince of Persia series' implementation of the mechanic so noteworthy, though, is the technical hang-ups behind the first title, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. In an interview with Jeff Keighley, some of the developers behind the game admitted that they weren't even sure if they could get the time reversal to work on the PlayStation 2. See, going back to the example I used earlier to explain how time reversal works, storing data in a machine's random access memory, or RAM for short, is not the same as, say, saving a file on your computer's hard drive. The frame data is saved in the same place that the textures, models, and other in-game assets are held, and on earlier consoles, that was very limited. Every time a game stores the information necessary for time reversal, that uses a certain amount of memory for each frame. The more objects that get updated, the more data that needs to be saved, and the more memory that gets used. Use too much, and you can't save any more information. In the case of Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones, which is a 3D platformer with many moving parts, there's a lot of data that needs to be saved. Since the PlayStation 2 only has about 32 megabytes of RAM, it was very easy to end up using all of that memory when saving the data necessary for time reversal, along with the textures and scene data. This lack of available memory is the primary reason why there's a limit to how far back you can go. Even with the best of compression methods, the size of the data being used by the time reversal mechanic can only be reduced by so much. Only 3 years after The Two Thrones, though, Jonathan Blow's Braid was released on the Xbox Live Arcade. Blow's spoken about his inspiration for the mechanic coming from the Sands of Time and his desire to see it last longer than a few seconds. Unlike Ubisoft's franchise, Braid actually allows for you to reverse time all the way back to the very start of a level, something that would have been impossible on the less technically capable PlayStation 2. Given that the game was in 2D with relatively short levels, the amount of memory necessary was much smaller, but the desire to make the rewind near unlimited was still a massive hurdle. To get around this issue, Blow made sure to reduce the amount of moving parts throughout the game. Many of the components of Braid are static and constant, from the platforms and their collision data to even the majority of the particle effects. This choice, along with his ingenious and unconventional compression method, helped keep the necessary memory down to 40 megabytes to record up to 60 minutes of game time. Having a higher amount of reserved memory was very important, as one of the worlds in Braid needed to store another copy of the player's progress in order to complete some of the puzzles. In World 5, Time and Decisions, your rewinded progress is stored and played through in a shadow form, requiring the data to be run through again in a separate background instance. This shadow form would become later expanded upon in Capybara Games' Super Time Force, a 2D action platformer that kept track of your playthrough with every reversal of time, repeating the actions of every character you played as. What made this so unique was that not only could the shadow or ghost characters fight alongside you until their eventual deaths, but you could actually save them, giving the player another hit and making them stronger. This means that every character, ghost or not, is still doing some level of hit detection and individual processing to create their attacks on screen. It's an impressive system that greatly benefits from the immense boost in the amount of available RAM and processing power on modern systems. Across all of these games and these advancements in technology, it's pretty clear that time reversal is an incredibly complex combination of technology and game design that often requires many iterations to get working just right. But when it all comes together, this mechanic can really change the way that we play our games. With a system like time reversal, we can change the way that we handle some of the most intrinsic parts of gaming, like death. It doesn't need to entirely halt the flow of gameplay anymore. It can become a minor setback, and by incorporating a reversal system, that can be achieved in more cases than just a pitfall, like in the Prince of Persia reboot. Regular deaths while fighting don't need to result in game overs with a system like this either, and can actually allow for more interesting combat scenarios with a bit of imagination. In a similar fashion, more logic-based games could benefit from a practice mode that included a mechanic like this. By using a system similar to Toki Tori's, more puzzle games could actually allow us to look over and review our actions to find where we may have made a mistake, and start from there, instead of needing to restart the entire thing from scratch. But in whatever ways developers choose to utilize a system like this, it remains to be a technical marvel, and certainly a very cool mechanic.